Hi, I'm Tim, and this is my beautiful wife, Camilla. We got together when I was 18, and Camilla was sweet 16.
We both came from good Adventist homes, and we thought we were going to do the best that we could to follow all the rules and have just the best relationship possible. So we started off well. We met at a youth rally.
Hang on. If we're following the rules, aren't we supposed to meet at Avondale?
Yeah, but not if you're 16 though.
Yeah, okay, good point. We started dating at summer camps.
That's true. Except I'm pretty sure dating at summer camps is not allowed.
It is if your dad's the youth director, though.
Oh, gosh. Well, we had a long distance relationship for 1 year, and then I moved to Melbourne, and we dated for another 4 years before he asked me to marry him.
5.
4.
5. We were together for 6 years before we got married.
No, but we started going out in January and we got married in July, so it can't be 6.
Six
it has
and a half
to be 5.
then.
Is it 5.5 or 6.5?
6.5. So January 2001
Yeah.
to July 2006. So anyway, like I said, it was about 6 years.
Okay.
Come back here. About 6 months before I proposed, I bought a house. I thought it would be great to have a nice place that we could live together.
Yeah, that would have been nice, yeah.
Okay, so it's not the nicest place, but it's, our own space, and it was what I could afford as an apprentice. It's got potential.
Potential kind of starts to lose its charm after 13 years.
If you don't like it, why don't you do something about it?
Me?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Why don't you do something about it? You're a carpenter. You're supposed to make us a bigger house. We don't even have a driveway.
Yeah, okay. I can make us a bigger house, but we're going to need plans and permits. That's not my area.
What do you mean that's not your area? You think it's my area? What, we need a bigger house with a driveway. You said that we could have kids after 5 years of being married, and our house is not big enough. What? Well, have you got nothing to say to that? What, just say it.
Sounds like you think you'd be better off without me.
Look at me. So, welcome to our relationship about 5 years ago. 6.
5 or 6?
God, don't even start.
I felt like you were always attacking me, and I was never good enough for you. I guess I felt like you didn't understand me.
Well, I thought you didn't take responsibility or action, and you left everything up to me. You might be wondering what we're doing up here, talking to you, and so are we. But God really, speaks through all sorts of different people and in lots of different ways. And over the last few years, Tim and I have been attending a lot of relationship seminars and learning how to have the relationship that we want. And we really feel that God's been leading us towards a deeper understanding of His intentions for the marriage relationship. And it's funny, we were talking one night about how we'd really love to share that with more people, like what we've learned and how we've grown. And then the next day I went to playgroup and was helping Rach set up all the toys, and Pastor Rob and Pastor Faye help us out. And Pastor Rob said, he comes up to me very hesitantly and he says, I'm going away in a few months and just don't have to answer me right now. But I just was wondering if you just think about it. Would you maybe like to take a sermon while I'm away? And I said, yep. And he was like, oh, okay. I think he might be a bit more hesitant next time he asks. So, anyway.
You might want to be careful about what you say at home, because I think he's got bugs in our houses, so just watch out.
But here we are, and we'd love to share some of our journey with you this morning.
We're going to take a look at a verse in Genesis. It's Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. And it says in Genesis, if you can turn to it if you'd like to. It says in Genesis that God created people in his image, meaning to be like him. So it's Genesis 1, verse 27. You might be able to read it on the screen. I can't. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. He brought a man and a woman and brought them together, as it says in chapter 2, and they became one flesh. God has made this world for us, and he seems to love using metaphors to communicate with us. In fact, it seems to me that God has designed every type of human relationship in order to teach us about his love for us.
Could we just have the next one after that, please? My clicker doesn't seem to be working. Thanks. So if you look at all different kinds of relationships in the Bible, we find that God puts himself in or associates himself with all of our different kinds of relationships. In Proverbs, he talks about being like a friend to us. In Matthew, he calls us his brothers and sisters. In Isaiah, he says he feels like our mother. And later on, he said, probably the most common one is that he is a father figure to us. But we want to look at a different kind of one today.
From our experiences in life, we're always learning more about God. I'm sure you've heard someone say, if you haven't said it yourself, when I became a father or a mother, a parent, I learned so much more about God. I have a much greater understanding of him now.
Yeah, and like when Ushies come out at the supermarket, and then you completely understand what it feels like to want to flood the earth and destroy it.
Marriage is just the same. In Isaiah 54, verse 5, God paints himself as the husband of his people. He relates to us like a husband. Isaiah 54, verse 5. For your Maker is your husband. The Lord Almighty is his name. In Ephesians 5, Paul really expands on this metaphor. And these are the main verses we want to look at today. So if you'd like to turn to Ephesians 5, we're going to be spending some time in there.
So there's this metaphor in Ephesians 5 about, which we'll read shortly, about God being like a husband to the church. But I think we should have some modern day metaphors too. And one thing that I'm learning in our relationship is that one thing that I would like more of in our relationship is I want him to take me on more dates. But I'm learning that if I want any kind of romantic gesture, I have to ask for it. So, wish me luck. Honey?
Yeah?
I was just thinking, you know how it's really hard to find time to go on dates and things?
Yep.
And it's really expensive and you have to get a babysitter and all that stuff.
Yep.
Well, I just realised, look at this. We're up here for like half an hour. No kids.
Yep.
Could you please take me on a date?
Yeah, but what about...
Oh, they can watch.
What about all these people and we're up here?
That's okay.
Okay. I'm going to need a little bit of time to organise that.
Okay. All right. Just see what happens. Could we have the next slide? It's always tense, isn't it? Waiting. Tim famously had a date who took me. Oh, what's this?
Carnival.
A carnival? Yes, I love carnivals. Thank you. Cool. What are we doing? Oh my goodness, what's that? Look at that. It's like a roller coaster. Oh, do you think we should go on the roller coaster? I just think, it'd be so much fun, but do you think it'd be too scary? Do you get sick on roller coasters? It could be expensive. Do you think it's going to cost a lot? It might not really be worth it, hey?
Do you see what's happening here? Do you want to go on the roller coaster?
I don't know. Do you want to go on the roller coaster?
Do you see what's happening here? Camilla wants to go on the roller coaster, but she doesn't want to make the decision to go on the roller coaster, because if she decides that we're going to go on the roller coaster, we might spend a long time waiting in line. I might get bored. I might complain about, spending all this time in the line. We could be doing something else. It might be too scary or not scary enough. So she's worried that if she makes the decision, the emotional responsibility of that decision rests on her, and that scares her. So what she needs right now is for me to step up, make the decision, take the responsibility for the decision at least, and go from there. That lets her be free to enjoy it. Hey, honey, do you want to go on the roller coaster?
Yeah.
All right.
Just wait for it to come around. Oh, here it is. Excellent. Okay, ready? We need the next slide, please. Go. Get in. Quick, it's moving. Ready? Woo! Need the next. So this sort of situation can play out a lot in relationships. And for us, some of the big decisions that I felt weighed heavily on me were the decision to have kids, because Tim, excuse me, we had decided early. Tim was sort of never he was always very apprehensive about the idea of having children. Luckily, we had an excellent premarital counsellor, Pastor Darren Croft, who has no such qualms about having children. And he really helped me to, get Tim across the line. You know how you fill out those forms? I don't know if you've ever done it, but we had to fill out a form and say, what your kind of expectations are for marriage. And one of them was, how long before you'll have children. And, with no coercion from me, Tim wrote 5 years. And I'd written 5 years too, like after 5 years have kids. But then when it came to that point, 5 years sort of ticked over rather quickly. And Tim was like, no deal, can't do it, change for me. And I guess, babies come, babies are wonderful, and we do have 2 beautiful ones. Not quite babies anymore, but they do come with a few drawbacks, as you may have noticed. If you've had some, they cry and, they keep you up at night, and you really lose a lot of personal time and private time. And I didn't want to be the one to be saying, yes, we're having kids, that's how it is, because, I don't want to be left with, your baby's crying, go on, deal with this, what's wrong with your children? And so...
I told you this wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, that's exactly. I didn't want to be solely responsible for all the problems that it would bring. And that will actually cause me a huge amount of stress. I don't know if you heard, Arlene Taylor is a brain researcher who says that women have, they uptake a lot more of the stress hormones when they're released in the body than men do. And so women have a tendency to connect all sorts of events and, think if we do this, this will happen, that will happen, whereas men don't tend to do that. And they also take up a lot less stress when it comes to stressful events of the stress hormones that are released in their body. So it can take a huge weight off from the woman if the man is able to step up and and take, not necessarily to make all of the decisions, but to take the responsibility for the decisions.
God set up the model for masculine and feminine marriage relationships in Ephesians 5. So we're going to look at verse 25 now. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for it, just as Christ does the church, for we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his mother and father and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. Under the first covenant, God's people were required to regularly make sacrifices to atone for their sin. They carried the responsibility for their sin. When Jesus died on the cross, he took the responsibility for the sin upon himself, removing the emotional burden of guilt. Removing the emotional burden of guilt associated with the sin, so that people could go on living their lives without having to carry that emotional burden. There are still natural consequences for the sin, but we don't have to carry the emotional burden.
So if the masculine role is to carry the emotional responsibility of the relationship, let's have a look at the feminine role in the relationship. And that's up a bit higher. Oh wait, why did you put this verse in?
Just read it, it'll fit. You'll like it.
No, we don't.
Yeah, go for it.
Go to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, you better go back. So it says, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Saviour. Now as the church submits to Christ, so wives also should submit to their husbands in everything. What? This is terrible! Oh, I really should have read that before we came up here. Anyway, early on in our relationship, submitting was not something that I was into. I mean, really, actually, I was the boss. So, and I think the reason I did that was that I just didn't trust Tim to look after me at all. I really felt like he'd let me down in a lot of areas. Like, he tried to back out on a decision to have kids. He'd rejected me physically. He went on he got this weird transversy, who's-y, what's-it thing and didn't work for months. He went and got depressed, I don't know why. And and I guess, I didn't trust him to look after us. So, I was really stressed and, just bitter and angry at him. But now I know that there's nothing to be afraid of with these verses because they're actually really beautiful. And if we look at the Christ and church metaphor, submitting doesn't actually put him in charge as such, but it's handing over the emotional responsibility. Change it for me. That's not the right one, is it? Yeah. Okay. But a man can only take emotional responsibility if you actually let him. No,
right.
It's not. Thank
Sorry.
you. Okay. All right. So elsewhere in the Bible, God uses the same kind of metaphor about a husband and wife relationship in Hosea. And in Hosea, he relates the nation of Israel at worshipping other gods as though his wife is being unfaithful to him. But I think it's really interesting what he says there. He says even though she's been unfaithful, he's going to win her back. And he says, therefore, I'm now going to allure her. I'll lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. And in that day, declares the Lord, you will call me my husband, you'll no longer call me my master. And I think it's really interesting that he puts those there, like saying a husband is not a master, it's a different relationship. And I think God still wants us, if we look at our own lives, God wants us to make our own decisions, but he's happy to carry the emotional weight of them. And I think that is a really great just image of what it can be like in a marriage relationship. But a man can only take emotional responsibility if you let him. And that happened quite gradually for me as I learned to trust him again. But I think the really big whammy came about a year ago when we were talking about me giving up my job. Now, as we talked about, Tim had lots of health issues, mental and physical, and hadn't worked full-time for maybe 10 years that we'd been married. And I'd always been a part, even we had kids and I'd still been part of working. That was one of his sort of, what's the word? Things. Thing is always a good word to replace any other word that you can't think of. One of his things that he demanded if we were to have kids was that we would both work and job share and that he wouldn't have to have the whole responsibility of, providing the income. So we'd always done that. I didn't mind because I didn't mind going to work, but then all of a sudden my job got very bad and I really wasn't enjoying it. And he said, look, I'm ready, you can leave your job and I'll do it. I can work full time and look after you. And I'm like, but fortunately the job was bad enough that I was like, yep, okay, right, we'll try it. So I go into work, I'm super excited, so I'm like, I'm quitting my job, yes! And then I come home, I'm like, oh, my hero, he's gonna look after us, it's gonna be amazing. Welcomes me home with a big hug, says, honey, I lost my job today.
All right. Let's not go there just now, all right? How about we get back to that carnival and the date?
All right, I can do this. It'll be all right. I can still do this. Okay, I can trust him, but if I'm going to, there's a game that I'm going to need to play first. So, if I'm going to be able to submit and let him take control and look after us, I'm going to need to get all of the words out that I have about it. And I guess I'm sure you've heard the saying that we don't fall out of love, we fall into resentment. And for women, we really need to talk about how we're feeling about things. And if I resent him for something, I start to put blocks in the way of our relationship. So I'm going to be sending some words Tim's way. You might have experienced this before, men or ladies, but I just want you to think of it in this way, that the words are not actually about you. They will sound like you, they might even have your name in them, but the words are not about you, they're actually about this block that has appeared, we put resentment in the way. So the words are about the block. Where's my stuff? Oh, there. Okay, all right. Here we go. We're going to play the pie throw game. If you wouldn't mind, Lockie. Submitting's not all that bad, actually, sometimes. Okay. Honey, I can't believe you lost your job today. I'm really scared. I mean, I thought you were supposed to look after us and you were going to, I was going to quit. I was really excited. I was excited. And I'm really scared. You let me down, and I'm really angry about that. And what am I going to do now? Do I have to go back in to work and tell them that I'm not quitting anymore? That'd be really embarrassing. I don't know if I can do that. And what I'm really scared about is that, you've had depression before, and I'm just worried that you're going to fall back into that. You're going to be sitting on the couch at home. We've got kids now. We have to look after them. I don't know what to do. Okay, you good in there? You got to say something. You got to talk. Oh, careful. Hang on.
All right, guys. So the thing to remember in that hurricane is that it's not about you. It's not about me. So all that stuff she said is about her. So I'm not going to go through the rest of my day wearing this, right? I'm going to take it off because I know exactly what to do with it. Chuck that in the bin. And yeah, I'm going to chuck that in the bin because that's all of her stuff. That's her hopes, her dreams, her fears, and her insecurities. I'm not going to wear it around. I need to change the slide. So I just need to take all of that off, chuck it away, give her a big hug, and tell her I've got it sorted. It's okay, baby, I've got it. I've got it sorted. That allows her to relax and to calm down and enjoy her time off work.
So God actually invites us to do this with our relationship with Him. In Psalm 62, verse 8, he says, "Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge." And pouring out your hearts involves all of your worries, your insecurities, your hopes, your dreams. God isn't afraid of your expectations, your anger, your hurt, your pain.
That's how God wants us to relate to Him. And in the relationship metaphor, guys, we have the God role. This can be what emotional responsibility feels like. Once she gets out all the words she needs to get out, and I assure her that I've got it covered, she can start to feel safe again. If I shut down her words because they're too painful for me, if I argue, if I withdraw, she's going to hold all of that inside, and she's going to continue to carry the emotional burden. Resentment will build up, like our blocks over there, and the relationship starts to die.
I actually used to withhold those words because, I felt like they were unfair. And, he's just lost his job himself and, been given a massive smackdown at work. And then he gets another one from me, and I just thought, it's not fair, I can't say that. And we often try to rationalise our feelings away, but for women it really is all about feelings. And we've just found that me being able to get those feelings out, even though, they don't sound nice, they probably don't feel nice, but,
Nope.
But if they don't come out, a block goes in. And if I can get them out, that can go away and we can come back together. And I used to I would just let them build up and up and up and up and up until I would just pop.
Like a seagull with an aspirin. Who's done that?
And I guess when I did that, all the words would come out a lot harsher and a lot uglier than they needed to be. So now all I say is, honey,
Yeah?
got some words. And he says,
I'll get my poncho. And my hammer.
The hammer?
Yeah, hammer.
Next slide, please, Lucky.
So,
Go get it.
all right, I'll go get it. While she's throwing cream pies, there's a game I need to be playing. Fellas, I'm sure if you put yourself in my shoes while that was going on, you would know that pretty much everything she said, I had a response that I wanted to say. I wanted to argue back. I wanted to defend myself. So every time I feel that come up, I need to whack that mole down.
Okay. So are we playing again?
Yeah, you ready?
Okay. Rewind. We're on the wrong side. Rewind. Okay. Okay. Honey, I'm really scared.
You're scared?
I'm so disappointed.
You're disappointed?
Well, you lost your job today and you're supposed to look after us.
Yeah, I lost my job by text message with no reason.
I mean, you said you were going to look after us, and
I will. Give me a
just
chance.
really freaks me out because I was really looking forward to this. I was going to, enjoy my time at home
You
with
still
the kids,
can.
just relaxing and, just doing stuff together. But what, do I have to go back to work now and tell
Well,
them
it's
that
just
I'm
now we've got more
not
time
quitting?
together. You always said you wanted more.
I don't know, I can't go back and tell them that I'm quitting. It'd be so embarrassing. What if they won't even have me back? I mean, I don't
Oh, well,
know.
my work won't have me back. They won't even talk to me about what happened.
We've got kids now. What are we going to do?
I'll do something. Just give me a chance. I don't want to talk about this right now. So even though I want to respond and say all of those things, if I want to get anywhere near her in the next month or so, I've just got to listen without fixing, and I need to feel what's going on for her. Women exposure... What is that word? Women experience everything in their lives emotionally, and she needs to be able to talk that emotion out, to release it. And once she's done that, she feels relaxed and we can come back together and connect again. Because she feels safe. While she's sharing all of those words, the best thing I can say is, honey, that must be really hard for you. Tell me how that feels.
Like, God is actually really good at this. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but when you pray, you talk, and he listens. He's like a pro at listening without fixing.
It must be really hard for him because he actually has the ability to fix everything. Unlike me.
All right. But there is one more game that we need to play, ladies, because you just can't leave him there. You can trust him and he can take all of your words, but he's also going to need some encouragement. So, will you play one more game with me, honey? You'll like this one.
Okay.
All right. Now, you might have seen, I'm sure you've seen this game. We've just got to go back to the carnival for a sec. And I need my supplies. I don't know where they are. Huh? Oh. Okay, supplies. All right. So this game is called the Laughing Clown. I'm sure you've seen this one at the carnival. Tim, could you oblige us, please? So the one where you've got a ball and you have to put it in the clown's mouth. So we're going to play this game, And we're going to pretend that I've got a ball here, that these treats are just words of encouragement. So men really thrive on affirmation and appreciation. So I'm going to give you some of these, I guess. Hang on. Oh, no, I'm not right there, am I? Go back. So if I want the pattern to continue, like I love it when he listens to me and he's like, that must be really hard. Tell me how that makes you feel. But if I want that to continue, then I'm going to need to give him something as well, because, you can't keep that up forever. An ego slam like that is pretty harsh. And I know, it feels like to me that I'm throwing cream pies, but I'm pretty sure how it lands is actually a knife throw game to him. That's serious stuff that I'm unleashing. So in order for him to be able to handle that, I need to tell him when, he's how he makes me feel and when he's doing a good job. And throughout the Bible, we're often reminded to praise God as well. So we're going to, think of this treat as appreciation and encouragement. Next. All right, so you ready? Oh, sorry, okay. So could we just go to the Bible verse, please? So Psalm 146, it lists all these reasons. Sorry, I really should have made the text bigger, shouldn't I? It says, praise the Lord, I will praise the Lord all my life. And it goes through all these things that he's done amazing. He upholds the cause of the oppressed. He made everything in the world. He gives food to the hungry. He sets prisoners free. He gives sight to the blind. He lifts up those who are bowed down. He watches over foreigners and widowers. It's just going through, God, you're amazing, you're amazing. Look at all these things you do. And that's, how we're encouraged to respond to God for all the things he's done. And we can really use this as a model for our relationships, I believe, for women with their husbands. So every time I think of something good, I'm going to put the ball in the clown's mouth. All right. Honey, thank you so much for listening to all the things that I had to say. I really love that you listened to me, and yet I feel like you understand how I'm feeling and that you're going to take care of us. And I just want to say thanks so much for doing that. And I want to say thanks, honey, for coming and doing this sermon with me. And thanks for letting me chuck cream all over you. And now you're sitting there like an idiot, and all to make my dreams come true. And I love you. Thank you. And just want to say everything you've done for us in the last few years is awesome. And I love how you got all these props ready and you just had everything ready for us at the right time, and you know where everything is, and I haven't even got a clue, and you've really done everything well, and you're changing the slides, and I mean, how does a man even do that? You must be a Superman. You're doing like 10 things at once. That's incredible. All of that, plus you got, the car packed this morning, and you got everything all organised. You think of great ideas. You're speaking so well. I mean, Tim is was a self-professed introvert, and you would never have got him up here before. And just the fact that you're here with me, I can't believe how amazing you're doing. And it just makes me feel so loved that, men hate relationship seminars, and you've been to like 50,000 in the last couple of years, and that's just incredible to me, and it makes me feel like $1 million, and I love you, and you're the best. So every time that you think of something that makes you happy about your man, you need to let him know. Just say it out loud straight away. And even if it's not there, just say it to everybody, because that still works. But make sure he hears it. Send him a text message if he's not there. Write him a note. You cannot appreciate him enough. If you do this, he'll continue to take the words and go above and beyond for you. But if you leave it out, then he'll start to put up the blocks.
We all have a core hurt that we take from our childhood. mine is that I feel like I don't belong. It's pretty close to that, something like that. Camilla's is that she feels that like she's not the best. At the couples retreat we went to about a year ago, I learned that we subconsciously choose our partner because they have what it takes to heal our hurt. However, if we let the resentment build up, all that happens is instead of healing that hurt, all we do is exacerbate the wound.
The argument that we had at the beginning of this sermon began over a small correction. I'm telling a story, Tim corrects me, and to put it mildly, that really annoys me. But I guess it makes me feel like I'm stupid, like he thinks I'm stupid, which definitely means that I'm not the best in my mind. But what I became aware of at the couples retreat about that is that the reason that Tim corrects me is because he feels like he doesn't belong. He feels like I'm leaving him out and he just wants to be included. And so now, when I see that, the thing that used to cause us so many problems and start so many fights becomes just a reminder to love him. To be like, hey, get over here. You belong with me. So what we need to do in our relationship is to remove the resentment, go back, so that we can feel the love again and get back to doing whatever we can to heal the hurt in the other person.
If you've ever had a friend, you'll already know that emotional intimacy doesn't necessarily come naturally. It's tough to put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable. It can be really confronting and uncomfortable. After we got married, I discovered that it can be the same with, let's call it, physical intimacy. It also has its challenges, can. I didn't expect that, and I didn't like the way that it made me feel. It made me feel as though I don't belong, I don't fit in. So I made a decision I figured that it was easier if I took care of myself on my own. I didn't think this was going to be much of an issue because it worked for me. Camilla didn't know about it, and unfortunately, my lack of interest in her physically left her feeling undesirable and definitely not the best. We used to argue long and hard about it. Camilla's core hurt had her provoking me to try and get some kind of emotional response because she wanted to know that she could invoke intense emotions in me. When she didn't get the passion that she wanted, she went for anger instead. Now mine had me shut down and withdraw because I already felt like I didn't belong, so I didn't want to argue about it. So I guess this really hit my core hurt, and I would just snap shut like a clam. I didn't feel like I could talk to her about it because I felt like she would reject me, and there's not belonging again. It felt like a hopeless situation because neither of us would move on it. I guess it seems really obvious that this was very detrimental in our relationship, but I hadn't seen it like that. And when I finally did, I realised this has to change. So after a few hours crying on the kitchen floor, talking with my mentor, to actually confront Camilla with it and go through it all again. And that was very scary, but I guess I got to the point where I realised that I couldn't have the relationship I was having. It wasn't worth having. So I had to be willing to let go of it in order to move forward. I was holding back a part of me that I felt was too ugly to share with anyone, and I didn't want Camilla or anybody to see it, but I had to let her have all of me before it was worth being together.
What a man. someone who's willing to face up to their fears and confront all of that for me, honey. You are my hero. And it's funny how the thing that you thought would end the relationship is actually the thing that won my heart. Because now I know that he's willing to give up anything for me, and, you know, to fight for me. And I'm just so proud to say that you've given me a better picture of what God is like and how much he loves me. Thank you.
Dear God, thank you for bringing us together so that we can understand and learn more about you. Thank you for being the love song that we can sing forever. And thank you for the opportunity to share our experiences with others. I ask that you be with everyone here and who's watching today, and bless their lives. Touch them, help them to feel your love. In your name, amen.